Sometimes when I develop a train of thought, I decide to run with it and record it here in perpetuity in the cloud. I usually erase my videos pretty quickly, but this and my two other channels, which have 100,000 views. Please bear in mind, I try to educate. As we learn, we're obliged to teach and stuff, but primarily my channels exist to record my life and the truth of my life and not somebody else's version or their lies or their perjury. This a little while ago, I was because things are finally calming down from the morning rush. I had a very sociable morning, got two mini lectures and one fairly long lecture out and stuff by the people who are willing to absorb. One was religious, and he was pleased to find a Jew that was in agreement with a Christian. That's rare. This video is about PTSD, and I wish you people who claim to have PTSD really knew what worst case real. Now, you may have PTSD on a very minor scale, but usually people who are, because what triggered this train of thought is that I've noticed that the hypochondriac clinic right over there, that when the weather is just mildly, I mean, it's like 55 degrees, a little wind, a little chill to the air, they don't, even though it's dry, all the little bit of, it rained yesterday and last night, but they don't show up. But when the weather's great, the hypochondriacs pack that clinic. This keeps popping into my head because I recently had what really turned out to be a really obnoxious church lady who kept claiming to have PTSD and showed no signs of it because PTSD people, we people are not confrontational and hyper aggressive like her. Okay, now to begin to explain what real PTSD is like, worst case. PTSD is a GABAergic defect. The GABA chemistry is what controls our fear and work and worry. The stress, anti-stress mechanism, which actually is connected to the cannabinoid receptor, and they work in concert to pretty much regulate, all seizures, all anxiety, all sorts of things. But in worst case PTSD, you have 10 years, the standard 10 years of myoclonic seizures. This particular type of seizure mimics a heart attack. Primarily what's happening with the breathing problem and stuff in the part of the fear, I'll have to explain heart palpitations too, because she didn't get that. Oh God, I really hate stupid people. In PTSD, you get 10 years of monoclonic seizures that mimic a heart attack, keep you flat on your back for 8 hours and 24 hours to recover. The only difference is that there's no radiating pain in the arm, especially to the left arm as usual. I knew I was not having a heart attack on my first full-blown seizure, which was like the third night of my honeymoon. It's a grand way to kick off a marriage, right? 10 years of seizure, the insomnia, which is already there, becomes even worse because the GABA chemistry helps you to sleep. And that's one of the things that made me think about it, is because I had a good, and let me finish up the diagnostics. And you proceed pretty rapidly during that 10 years to mitral valve prolapse. And you start seeing blood pressures at around 160, 180, 190 over 60 or 50. And the clacking is, I've talked about this in another video. And I'm sick of you people and you get heart palpitations, which is you have a nerve that can feel your heart, but the brain screens it out almost all the time. And the chemistry that controls that will come in and go out during these stressed out periods, these events. Is where you feel your heart, and may feel like it's pounding, and then all of a sudden it feels like your heart stops. She actually said, well, she'd hold her children's hand to her breast and say, feel it. It stopped. And I think she's already got one son trained to be a hypochondriac. She has stressed out one of her sons so badly that he gets a special compound medication that's, for his stomach. His stomach is stressed out because your stomach reacts to even loud noises and stuff. Please. Vagus nerve. She actually knew about that part. But please, there's really mild, and please, a lot of these military veterans that are being diagnosed with PTSD, no, you're not. At least you're not. No, you're not. What you have is amphetamine-induced schizophrenia. All those thoughts in your head and shit like that, please, the militaries of the world have been running off of amphetamine since World War I. I had some dickweed the other day who was talking about notice how all the actors are skinny and stuff like that, and I'm going like, he's trying to point towards our diet. Diet is part of it, but until about 1970, you could still buy a Benzedrine inhaler over the counter at the local burger stand for where the students would, and then they just open it up and kind of and then take the Benzedrine part of it and just drop it in their coffee, and boom, they're up cramming for the exams and stuff. It's diet pills and pep pills were readily available to anybody who asked for them. Doctors would so there's a reason that actors and actresses were skinny in the past, and a lot of people were more slender because it was a different diet. There was also pretty high consumption of stimulants, amphetamines. Just look into the stimulant problem in Japan. World War II was caused by methamphetamines. Anybody's really studied the subject. German meth and I think the aluminum tubes and shit like that, big seller in Japan after the war, even. A properly functioning brain, such as mine, can screen out enormous amounts of pain and the painful, traumatic memories, but eventually you wear out that GABA and cannabinoid chemistry, especially given the modern diet, and it begins to manifest itself physically. My knowledge, it's in my medical records, and I hold, just no historians writing about it, I hold the record for any athlete or soldier for performing the longest and kicking the most ass without any sort of chemical, no drugs, no ligaments in my right knee. Could still run faster than most of the guys on the field. It's, some people are just naturally, genetically weak-minded. And a lot of them go right over there to that, oh my gosh. So it's primarily what I wanted to talk about is that if your brain is working right, and it doesn't take much to alter it. I've been taking one medication now for 33 years, and that in combination with cannabis healed my heart. It keeps my anxiety under control, and here lately, the VA interference, the VA wants to experiment on us, so I've had my dosage reduced, and it got to the point where I, eventually had to resort to, just depending on the blackouts of just, sheer exhaustion just causing me to black out. Because I've had periods of insomnia that have lasted over 360 days. It's a lie when the government says that they won't keep the Guantanamo detainees, sleep deprive them for more. We don't do it for more than 11 days or it will kill them. Bullshit. And please, I know when I'm sleeping or when I'm awake and stuff, and I know about micro sleep and all those little things and stuff that you're going to claim or whatever. And there goes that focus thing again, showing up on there. That's actually the so please, we all, and I've said before, like in good crazy and bad crazy, it's only two types of people. And nobody, save and except for the stillborn, gets out of this life without suffering from psychosis, some form of psychosis. Fortunately, mine falls into the mood disorder area and not into the delusional disorder area of like the person who invaded my life and kind of really was stressing me out with their hyper generosity. It was leading up to the next attempted conversion of the Jew. The first attempted conversion ended up with an ice pick in my neck. Did I fixate on that? No. I've always learned to move on. The other day it came up in thought, and it took me because I saw his truck picking up and it took me 20 minutes to remember his name because I don't want to remember it. I don't have troubling dreams. I usually have a great dream life and stuff. I can control when bad memories come up. They're there. I toss them around for a little bit, examine them and analyze them, and then tuck them back away where they belong, down in the basement, out of my the front of my mind. I think my brain is actually exquisitely designed and functioning very well for having survived 70 of the most tumultuous years on the history of this planet. I'm sorry, so please, when somebody tells me you got PTSD, yeah, I know you can get it from a car wreck, you can get it from just physical injury, you can get it from being raped, but that you allow it to take over your entire life is really up to you. If you're not seizuring really bad, where you're out of commission for 24 hours per seizure, you don't have worst case PTSD. And I've had to deal with a woman that sat up here claiming AFib, eventually took, no, I was trying to explain to her heart palpitation. She actually thinks her heart is stopping. And as I recall in human beings and from empirically, like, so let's say you just completely shoot a human in the heart, blow it up, or, unlike, say, a mountain lion or a giraffe or something like that, a human being, and unlike the movies, a human being, once you cut off the blood pressure, the supply to the brain, usually you are unconscious in about 1-2 seconds max. So darn fucking hypochondriacs and bullshit artists. I really am. I'm just getting super annoyed with you people. You're claiming PTSD so you can get benzodiazepines. That's what you people want, is you're drug seeking. I never had any, like, I remember trying Valium when I was younger. Didn't do much for me. It took a large dose to even feel it. It took like 100 milligrams. But of course, by then, I already had PTSD. I had my first crippling spinal fracture when I was 14. Had my right leg reconstructed when I was 16. It just goes on and on. You know, my PTSD comes from both physical trauma and from psychological trauma. Watching people die really fuck your head up. Yeah, shit, it's not cool. It's especially if you're emotionally attached to that person. So please stop trying to override when I tell you that you have a mild case of PTSD. I really don't want to hear any fucking lip out of you. That you came up to me and you engaged me and used to tell me all kind of shit, and you're yappity yap 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 blah blah blah, and that you're confrontational. PTSD types are not confrontational. We prefer solitude. I'm kind of naturally that way, genetically that way, but the people with PTSD prefer to isolate themselves. We don't like the overstimulation, and we don't like we intuitively know that a large percentage of the population are going to be psychopaths, sociopaths, and shit. We know there's going to be trouble if you get in. Once you get into a crowd of 8, 9, 10 people, the probabilities for you running into some complete fucking asshole skyrocket. I don't like crowds because there's always going to be, multiple assholes in every crowd are just going to trigger me. And, but I think I'm going to finish up here at around 17 minutes, is that I have a perfect record of not tearing the place up, of not punching anybody out when they trigger me. Perfect record. 70 years old, perfect fucking record. And it's going to stay that way because I was brought up in a household that had discipline. And it was my parents, especially my dad, was the master of discipline. Maybe I'll finish with a funny. He had put on a show. All he would do was just humiliate you. He would, and in my household, there was ever absolutely the worst kind of abuse is verbal abuse. A kid I grew up with, thief and liar. That's what his parents called him all the time, because he was constantly being caught at the local stores. Putting it on the family, put it on the tab, the family tab. They ran a credit account there, but my family always did cash only. And he died a long time ago. The verbal abuse is. My dad used to take out his belt. They do. The old timers used to. Any old timer can tell you. You fold it in half and you push it together and pull it apart, making a snapping sound. And he would put on this great show of whipping our asses when we fucked up. But you know what? He didn't leave a mark on us. He'd go to your room. Then about 20 minutes later, I'd hear one knuckle on the door, and I'd go, "Hey, I'm about to work on a truck. I need a tool pusher." He would push you out of the family, isolate you for a little while after the humiliation, and then gently bring you back in through work and cooperation and doing something positive and building things. My dad was an expert in this area. He obviously learned it from his father and stuff. And my mother was such a gentle soul. My mother never said a mean word really in her whole life, never laid a hand, All my mother had to do was go, "Wait till your daddy gets home." And that's the problem we have right now. It's too many single-parent households with indulgent parents who don't have any. If you're a male child, when they're young, you need to lay a whooping on. You need to lay a humiliation on them. It's odd that I find in one culture is that when grandma, because mom's out prostituting herself, when grandma takes that extension cord to my ass, they resent that. I don't get that culture at all. I think you know what I'm talking about. That makes me think about my next subject, which is into Africa and not out of Africa. Now that you know a little bit more about PTSD, you might want to study the GABA node GABA, GABA aminobutyric acid, and its adjoining node, the cannabinoid neuroreceptor 1. This is a good place to start because those are two of the, that's really the most, that, the vanilloid receptor is important, but we're not sure yet. But if you really want to get started learning how the human being functions, I just told you the most important structure in the human brain. Just told you the real skinny on PTSD. If you didn't have 10 years of seizures, mitral valve prolapse and shit, I don't want to hear your crap. I really don't. I don't want to hear your fucking moaning and whining, pissing, bitching. All you're doing is stressing me out. That's really what you're doing. Sorry, I had a little bit of corn chip in there. I'm indulging. This is a day of violation of my diet a little bit. So at least now you know. And really, you should learn what they did. Go to King Rat, my other channel. You know, if you fuck with me, I'll stab a nigger in a heartbeat. That was my name around there amongst black. Oh, hey, there goes stabbing nigger. You know, so I still talk to black people all the time and shit like that. I am not prejudiced. I give everybody a chance, but they usually blow it in about a second or so. You know, just walking up to you with your fucking pants down around your knees, you've already blown it right there. You know, okay? Get my drift? It don't take long sometimes.